Kia ora koutou, welcome to Point of View. My name's Tom Augustine. Welcome to your monthly podcast talking about what's coming up on cinemas and in streaming. This month we are talking to two very, very exciting guests. The first, Rob Sarkies, legendary New Zealand filmmaker. He's made films such as Scarface and Out of the Blue, two of the great New Zealand films. His new film, Pike River, is going to be a very big deal. It is the story of the Pike River mining disaster, starring Melanie Lynskey and Robyn Malcolm. We sat down with Rob in the office. That film comes out on the 30th of October. Also out on the 30th of October on Rialto Channel. The story of May Pang. It's called Lost Weekend, a love story. And May Pang, if you haven't heard of her, she is a fascinating woman. She had a short but very, very important love affair with none other than John Lennon during the kind of height of his career before he was tragically murdered. It's a very, very powerful and fascinating film, and I was very, very lucky to sit down and talk to her as well. So stay tuned. Rob Sarkies, legendary New Zealand director, thank you so much for being here today to talk about Pike River. I was there last night. It was an incredibly moving experience. I'm interested in how you a feeling. I mean, it's been a really massive kind of rollout. You've been in Greymouth, you were up here in Tamaki Makaurau last night, and you're off to Christchurch next. So how has this experience been, unrolling this film finally?
Well, you know, you work on something for 5, 6, probably in truth 7 years, and at times it feels like you're just making a small film for your own friends and family, because those are the people who, in a way, you test it with. Your what I call my film friends. You know, other filmmakers often come and watch the film, and it's a really tight, really small group, and it feels like maybe that's going to be it. And so, of course, it feels great to finally be, you know, releasing the film and getting it out to, you know, the initial premiere audiences, and of course, you know, very soon the whole of New Zealand. I mean, that's why we make it, right? To show it.
I mean, last night there was something that I think it would have been the host, John Campbell, said, which was actually kind of then backed up by some of the people who were there from Pike River who spoke, who said that, you know, because this is a film about a tragedy, and it's an enraging one as well, but by the end of the film there was a buoyancy, there was a sense of optimism and lightness, and I think someone said it was like they were like washed in watching the movie, like the anger and the pain was given a bit of a wash. Do you feel the same way when you see the film now?
Well, that was always the intent of the film, in part. You know, I mean, you can't, when you make a film about a really full-on thing like this, you've got to be aware of the experience for the audience, for the people watching it. And, you know, I mean, no one goes to the movies to have an awful time and then to feel at the end that sort of what's the point? and it's one of the reasons why I found the story so potentially, if you like, cinematic, you know, it was worth putting on the big screen, is because actually, despite the tragedy at the heart of the story, it is actually, and hopefully you can affirm this, a story of hope, because it's about a fight, you know, and it's not a hopeless fight. It's a tough fight for sure. Most big fights are, but it's, you know, so it does sort of. I mean, I just always think of film as, you know, it's an emotional roller coaster, really, and I try to, with my team, particularly the editor Peter Roberts, we just try and chart a journey where you hold an audience and take them on an emotional ride, where sometimes it's full on, but not so full on that you kind of got to look away. And then you give them a moment to breathe, and then you take them on another ride, and it gently takes you to a good place, you know, and that sense of hope wasn't contrived. It was something that I actually physically saw in the characters we were making this about. When I first met Sonya Rockhouse and Anna Osborne, and particularly Anna Osborne, she was this tightly knitted ball of anger and grief, if you could imagine that. Just
Sure.
this, it was awful. I met her Fiona Samuel and I, Fiona's the writer, met her at her house. It was really dark in her living room. She was sitting there. We must have spoken to her initially for like 3 hours, and I came out of that meeting and I sat in the car with Fiona afterwards and said to Fiona, I don't know how that woman will ever escape this.
Yeah.
It was that awful.
Yeah.
And then over time, as Anna and Sonya, or should I say with Sonya, started to fight together
Yeah.
and started to achieve things much later, I could see from afar, just watching the media, because they started to be on TV and on the radio, I could see a change. And then when I met them and suggested this idea of making a film about their journey, I saw that change was profound. They were fighting on the surface for their men, right? That was the subject of their fight, or the reason for their fight. But actually, in fighting, they were saving themselves.
100%.
And I've seen the same thing before. I did a telly movie also with Fiona Samuel on Louise Nicholas called
right.
Consent, and I saw the same thing with Louise Nicholas. And it just, I don't know, it just shows how it's like a physical embodiment of empowerment, I suppose. They saved themselves, and they actually, through their friendship, saved each other.
Well, you mentioned Consent, and there's also, another film whose kind of presence looms large in this, which is obviously Out of the Blue, which is a film that you made many years ago now, but which stands up, in my opinion, as one of the great New Zealand films. And so I am interested how you've seemed to have found yourself in the position where you have this ability to channel the nation's most grievous stories, the stories where the ones that form our kind of national identity, and you seem to have this ability to really channel that. How did you find yourself in this position? Is it a comfortable position for you?
I mean, it kind of is, because it's not. These are all, I suppose, choices. Some of them are unconscious choices.
Yeah.
They're many of them are unconscious choices. Actually, they're. You know what? I feel like when you take on a really, I don't like the idea of boring people, right? And films by nature, they need to be dramatic. They need to have guts. Even a comedy, I think, needs some guts.
Absolutely.
There, and maybe I'm terrified of boring people to a fault, but because of that, I do look for stories that have what I call inherent drama in them. And these sort of stories you're talking about, Out of the Blue, Consent, and now Pike River, the drama sits there in the nature of the story, right? You don't need to make it dramatic, and that becomes a sort of permission, if you like, to, as a filmmaker, not try too hard, to just tell a story as simply as you can, because in the end you just want to pare things down to their essence, and show, in this case in Pike River and in Out of the Blue as well, the just the humanity of the story. It means you can shoot scenes that are, for other movies, you might think would be not that interesting. Oh, it's a family eating dinner, eating a chicken dinner, right? And mum leaves a bit early. They don't have a big argument, nothing much happens. But in my view, it's compelling because of the situation, because of what lies underneath it. And the other thing for me is these true New Zealand stories actually do have a power all of their own, right? And I think that everyone certainly last night when we sat in the Auckland premiere, you could sort of feel a shift in the room as soon as people walked into that cinema and saw the words Pike River on the holding slide on the screen.
Absolutely.
It's like kind of a, here we go.
Absolutely.
Okay, it sits there already. So as a filmmaker, in a way, I'm kind of exploiting that, but of course doing it in a way that doesn't require. You don't need to overdo it. You just need to just gently turn the dials.
I mean, this is the thing that I find so rewarding and fascinating about your work, is that you don't insert yourself too much. You don't over insist. You know, your work it presents the story. It's not flashy direction. It's remarkably solid and precise. And that must be, it must require a certain level of control on your part to try and kind of keep the emotion of the story front and center.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part of telling a story that has, a strong emotional heartbeat when you're the director is doing what you can to, through the very long process of especially post-producing a film, to stay connected in a present way with the actual emotions that your audience will be feeling, because you can't guess that stuff, So if and again, that's why it's so satisfying as a New Zealand filmmaker to tell these powerful New Zealand stories, because if I can watch my own film and it affects me deeply, if I can feel like I'm holding my breath, just like you described to me before we started recording, that you were holding your breath
the whole way through.
Yeah, then I know it's working. And I won't pretend that it can continue to do that for me after the 100th or whatever viewing, but through the whole editing process, when we're really properly shaping it, I'm kind of that's what I'm looking for. I'm simply looking for my own honest response when I play the film back to myself, and that's all I can trust.
Instinct.
Right? Yeah, it is instinct.
I mean, and also, the other thing that's really, really amazing about this film, obviously, is this incredible epic-sized cast. You mentioned there's 50+ speaking roles in the film.
Yeah.
And it is a sprawling. It is pretty much the closest to a New Zealand epic that we have at the moment. And at the heart of it, incredible performances from Melanie Lynskey and Robyn Malcolm. Were they always the ones in your head for these roles? And what was the process of, Melanie lives in America, very, very successful. Robyn is, one of the nation's most beloved actresses. What was the process of bringing them on board?
No, they weren't. I mean, it seems crazy to think, because the casting seems so. The number of people have said perfect casting, and I completely agree. It is. It seems so self-evident. Who else would play these two women? I mean, they look so physically similar, let alone everything else, including and especially their ability as actors. They're both incredible, and incredible together. That's even more amazing.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't obvious to us initially. But these things sort of evolve. You look at kind of lists and you think about names, and then you eventually I mean, I remember when Melanie Lynskey kind of clicked as someone that it would be great to approach. I was just listening to her do an interview on RNZ, and she and I knew Mel from years back, in Wellington days, and I listened to her doing this interview, and she sort of seemed like someone who would be kind of, in a way, inaccessible, which is not a fair thing to say, because she actually has come back to do some roles in New Zealand films over the years. But she's been in, she's worked with, everyone. She's been, she's right up there, and she's kind of an icon in her own way.
100%.
And I heard her say on this interview that she'd love to come back, and she seemed so genuine about it. Love to come back and do a New Zealand film, and I just thought, oh, hold on. we're writing one. So all as I said, I knew Mel, so all it took was an email, then a Zoom call. Oh, she read the script, she loved it. Then a Zoom call, and she was on, and then in terms of Robyn Malcolm, honestly, who else in New Zealand would you choose to play Sonya Rockhouse?
True.
If you put the two of them together on your hopefully you're looking now at a shot of the two of them together,
it feels very natural.
It's they're sort of they're not dead ringers, they're different, but you can there's something so similar about them.
They inhabited the roles. It's fascinating to watch the film bring out some new kind of emotion every time they are together and talking to each other. There's something so naturalistic and rewarding and very authentically Kiwi about their interactions. Was that difficult to find? What was the process of locating that kind of warm heart that's really the centre of the film?
It was simple. Don't act. And actually those two actors are amazing at not acting anyway, so that's one of the reasons they're so good. The process, in truth, other than talking through the script and the ideas and sort of the tone of it all, was simply getting them together with the real people they were playing. That I always knew that was the most important thing, and they spent hours with the real Sonya Rockhouse and Anna Osborne. We just got them together in a room. We sent them out for dinner, and they had a 5-hour-long dinner at a restaurant. And and I wasn't even there. It was important I wasn't there. It needed to be these four women in a room, gelling, bonding, and they just really got each other almost instantly. And after that dinner, the next morning, Mel and Robyn came into the rehearsal room just with me, and they were just buzzing. They just they right from the second day, they had this deep and innate understanding of who these two women were and are. And I knew that from there, my job as a director was actually just not to get in the way of that, and to let them essentially live or relive the experience. I create the samper, I create the scenes of the other cast members, and then they experience these things. Mostly it was 1, 2, maximum 3 takes, and there wasn't a lot of rehearsal before the takes either. We blocked it, and then they experienced it. So often what you're seeing is those two actors actually experiencing a moment for the first time, and me and my crew are there to capture that. And it was the same, because it's not just, this film's not just Melanie and Robyn. There's so many other great people. Lucy Lawless. We're so Ian Mune. There's so many. Yeah. And for all of the rest of the cast, all I knew I needed to do was make sure they were in the same film. That's important. Tonally sitting in that same space, and I pretty much did the same thing. I got as much as possible the actors together, often on Zoom calls, with the real people they were playing, and would have an hour-long conversation, with the real Bernie Monk or the real Tony Sartorius, and from there, I don't know, they're actors. They pick out truths, and then they don't have to act. They can just sit in that space. It wasn't hard. Yeah,
listen, don't get me wrong. The entire cast is incredibly impressive. There are something I love in these big films like this is when there are, character actors essentially playing small roles, and they just come to life, and there's just some extra element that's added by their very presence. Coming to mind immediately is the lawyer who kind of grilled
Nigel Hampton, KC, played by Arthur Ranford.
He's fantastic, and there were a range of others, but just really, really great across the board. Now, I also wanted to ask you, because obviously this is a film with a fair amount of burden of representation. You have to make a lot of hard choices about how you tell this story. the film is kind of a portrait of a friendship, but it's also a court drama to a degree. It's a historical account. There are so many different ways you could have told this story. So was it always naturally, this is the direction, these are the personas we're going to follow? Or did you have ideas about how, like, did it take a while to kind of lock in on where the story was?
No, a little bit like out of the blue in a way. You know, I kind of stated from the get-go, I knew what that would be right from the start, and then kind of Graham came on board that and followed kind of a vision. It was the same for this. It was very clear to me that this was a story about Sonya and Anna and their what they went through in terms of their pain and their grief, and then their anger, and then their fight. You know, that I could see. I could see the basic scaffolding of that journey right from the start, right from the moment when I sat with them for the first time and asked them to tell me their story. And the amazing thing with those two is they'd been approached by people who wanted to write books about their story, and Sonya will go to you if she was sitting here. She'd go, "No, I'm not really a reader. I love watching television." Like so in a way, what you'd often have is a book, and then you'd make the film of the book, right?
Yeah.
In fact, that's what we did with the Louise Nicholas story and Out of the Blue.
Yeah.
With this, the film is the book. I mean, someone one day might make the book of the film.
Yeah, right.
Which I'd love to read. In fact, I can help them because I've got a whole lot of research now.
A
raft of stuff.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, just before we wrap up, there is a very big cameo in this film. Massive cameo. That maybe we're breaking the story here. I appear in the film in the background of one scene. Tell me how it was to work with an actor like me, you know?
Oh, well. No, look, we did have a scene where, where we needed to get something that felt like 200 people in a room.
It was a lot of people.
To experience the moment where the families were told, the most awful news you could imagine, that your loved one was dead, that the mine had exploded. It's in the trailer. And we got, a big group of people. It was the second last day of our shoot.
Yeah.
We had a massive group of people in that room. And I knew that the emotion that I wanted to evoke from that crowd was going to be so... I'd had so many families describing to me what that moment was actually like, and they described it to me in the most visceral way, like a kind of like a group primal scream, like an animal howling, was what the families said to me. This is really selling the film. Yeah, I really want to go to a film, but that's the truth of what these families described to me, and you can imagine it. And I actually wondered, and Fiona wrote it in the script, but I kind of went to myself, how do I evoke that? Because it's just so profound, so huge.
Truly.
And once again, I had a secret weapon as a director, and it was the real people.
Yeah.
So you'll remember.
Yeah.
We did a take, I think, and it was okay.
Yep.
And then at the end of that take, I just wanted to see how that first take went.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of that take, I gathered the whole crowd of 200 of us or whatever it was outside that hall, and I got Sonya Rockhouse, Anna Osborne, and Rowdy, all Pike River families, to tell their version of what happened in that real room when it had occurred at that point 13 years ago. And the whole crowd listened for probably 10 minutes as they told their truth of that story. We were all, Melanie Lynskey, Robyn Malcolm, yourself probably, you tell me,
definitely
in tears. Me too. It was, and without breaking it, I didn't give any direction from there.
Yeah.
We just went into the
straight
room
into it.
and did it again, and that's what we captured. You know, so you know what that means is the truth of that moment that we've found a way to express in film has actually come directly from the very people who experience that truth. You know?
Yes.
That's, if you're wanting to make something deeply authentic, what greater gift?
And the energy was there in the room. It's there on the screen. You know, it's it is truly, you know, it exemplifies that idea of community filmmaking. You know, like where the presence of the energy of a people is there on the screen.
What was it like for you?
Being there in that room, very, very emotionally charged, very intense, you know. And I know you mentioned last night, I think it was you who mentioned obviously there were more featured extras who formed a little community themselves afterwards, because that was the emotion that was forged between them, that kind of bond. You know, as you say, it is not often that a director would mention the extras on stage at the premiere, but that was the kind of shoot it was. That was the kind of energy, even there for like a day as I was.
They were as important as the main cast, because that's the thing. It's you know, feature film. It's only as good as its weakest link.
True that. Yeah.
And it's a film about a community, and you're depicting so many faces on the screen, you know, sometimes in big close-ups. Sorry, you didn't get a big close-up, but, you know, I tried.
It was enough. It was more than enough. It was bracing to see myself out of focus in the background. That was enough. Rob, I am very, very moved by this film, and very moved that you came and spoke to me today about it. So thank you very much for being here, and congratulations on Pike River.
Total pleasure. Go see it.
Go see it. Absolutely. In cinemas in November, there is a heck of a lot coming out. One of the most exciting kind of cinephile events of the year here in Aotearoa, Terrify Film Festival, returns triumphantly from last year. It is a great festival for those who are fans of horror, sci-fi, fantasy, anything genre. This year they have absurdly good lineup. I mean, you know, James Partridge, friend of the pod, has been here before, very, very dedicated to getting the best of the kind of under the radar genre films, and also some of the big titles. There's a great selection this year. Bugonia, which is Yorgos Lanthimos's new film with Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. We've got Sisu 2, which is the sequel to the kind of gloriously violent Nazi killing action film from a couple of years ago. There's an interesting one called Primate, which I don't actually know that much about, but looks to be, you know, if you like the scene with the killer chimp in Nope, it seems like it might be in the same vein as that. Keeper, which is from the guy who made Osgood Perkins, who made Longlegs and The Monkey from earlier this year. His new film Predator Badlands, which is a very, very high profile sequel to Prey, starring Elle Fanning, which looks like a very big sci-fi epic. Also, they have The Running Man, the updated version of the classic Arnold Schwarzenegger film, starring Glenn Powell and directed by Edgar Wright. As well as that, We Bury the Dead, a zombie film with Daisy Ridley from Star Wars. New Zealand film, the sequel to Deathgasm 2. This kind of cult comedy film called Nirvana, the Band, the Show, the Movie. And also Legend of Ochi, which is a kind of indie fantasy film. So a massive range. There's also a secret screening. What it's going to be, I don't know, but I'm very, very excited. I love Terrify. So I'm going to be front row ready for that. We've also got a whole bunch of other great films coming out this month. Familiar Touch, which was actually at the film festival earlier this year, returns. It is a very, very powerful story of kind of coming to terms with old age. That one also happens to have one of the most beautiful posters, one sheet posters that are, of any film this year. Now You See Me, Now You Don't, which is the sequel, the third sequel to the Now You See Me series. Successful series? I'm not sure. I mean, it's got 3 movies. It's kind of a strange one. It's a series of about some bank robbing magicians. I believe that's what it is. It's got a very, very star-studded cast. Jesse Eisenberg in the lead, Dave Franco, Isla Fisher, Morgan Freeman, Woody Harrelson, etc., etc. What's annoying to me is that the first film was called Now You See Me, the second film was called Now You See Me 2, and now the third film is called Now You See Me, Now You Don't. I don't know about that. Anyway, if you're a fan of that series, it's time to get back into the cinema and check out what they're called the Horsemen, the magician bank robbers are up to. Wicked for Good. Now, this is going to be a big one. The original Wicked film, which came out last year, I think, with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, was a massive, massive hit. Listen, it wasn't for me. I'm not a huge fan of the original film. That said, I've never seen the musical performed live, and I feel like most of the things that were good about the film were transplanted from the musical, aside from Ariana Grande's very, very good performance. So this is the kind of the finishing of the tale. Why it's been split into 2 films, I don't know, but here we are. This one is going to be packed cinemas all the way through till Christmas, I can already tell you. And it's probably going to be nominated for Oscars as well, so let's see how they wrap this story up. Now, the next film that I'm going to talk about is one of my most anticipated of the year, one that's been shrouded in a little bit of mystery. Premiered at Cannes, hasn't been seen since. Die My Love, which is Lynn Ramsey's new film. Lynn Ramsey, the director of We Need to Talk About Kevin, Ratcatcher, Morvern Keller, one of the great living filmmakers. Very sparing in the kinds of films that she jumps onto. She only has about 5 films to her name at this stage. All of them fantastic films. This one, very high profile because it stars Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson, and it looks to be about a woman kind of spiraling after a pregnancy. But if you know Lynn Ramsey, you know you're in for something that's very psychologically fraught, very experimental, but also very, very powerful and very evocative. I really love Lynn Ramsey. This one is going to be one to look out for. Now, Nuremberg is another one that's kind of simmering away in the margins of the kind of Oscar buzz this year. We'll see how this one does. It's a historical retelling of the trials at Nuremberg of Hermann Göring and other kind of Nazi collaborators. Russell Crowe plays Göring, I believe, and most of the kind of recognition for this film that I've seen so far has been centered on his performance. I love kind of this modern era of Russell Crowe where he's moved past the kind of matinee idol stage and now he's very firmly in that kind of character actor mold, and he makes some very, very interesting choices. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in this film. He's up against Rami Malek, also a very good performer. Netflix's third entry in the Knives Out series, Wake Up Dead Man, Rian Johnson's very, very successful sort of series of Agatha Christie-esque mystery stories. This one has received some of the best reviews of that entire series. The original Knives Out is a bit of fun. The second one is a little bit of a dud. This one seems like a bit of a return to form. Looks to be kind of a bit of a conversation about the nature of faith in the modern day. Very, very star-studded cast. One of the most impressive in a series of impressive casts, including Josh O'Connor, Josh Brolin, Glenn Close, Kaylee Spaney, Mila Kunis, etc., etc. A really, really broad cast, as well as the return of Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc. So that one is only in cinemas for 2 weeks. It's part of Netflix's very strange decision to make these massive films, not release them in cinemas, and push people towards watching them on Netflix, which, you know, seems to sort of cut them off at the knees in terms of profit, but who knows. So that one will be on streaming in December, but if, like me, you want to see a film like this on the big screen, make sure you do in those early weeks in the later part of November. Now we have Zootopia 2. This one is the fairly long-awaited sequel to the very, very popular Zootopia film that dropped in the middle of the 2010s. not. I mean, this one is kind of a follow-on of that story, where it's going to go from there. I generally felt like the story was pretty much wrapped up when I saw that first film. Didn't feel the need to see another one, but it's a very, very popular property. Not surprising they're making a sequel. This one is going to be one to take the kids to. Train Dreams. Now, this is another one that's a Netflix property that is briefly going to be on the big screen. This one you are going to want to see on the big screen. It is an adaptation of a novella by Denny Johnson. Beautiful book, one of the great books of this century, and it's the story of it's this kind of Terrence Malick style story about pioneer era America. Joel Edgerton in the lead. Looks very, very powerful, cinematically stunning. The reviews when it landed at Sundance were rapturous, so I'm very, very excited to see this one. Highly recommend you make the trip out to the cinemas to see that one. Coming up this month on streaming, we have a few very high-profile films, mostly coming to us through Netflix. So at the top, we have two films that are drawing a lot of Oscar buzz. After its cinema run, we're getting Frankenstein, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. This is the film he's long wanted to make. It's been in cinemas in October. Now in November it's coming to streaming, so a lot of people will be able to get eyes on it. It's got a very star-studded cast. Oscar Isaac as Dr. Frankenstein, Jacob Elordi as Frankenstein's monster. It looks to be very similar to a lot of the other kind of Guillermo del Toro films of the modern era. Immaculately put together, the art direction beyond reproach. Whether that will coalesce into a good story, we will see. But as it is a film that he has wanted to make pretty much his whole career, it's gratifying to see him be able to to actually make this story. The other big one to watch is Jay Kelly. Now that one is also getting a cinema run this month. That one stars George Clooney. It's a Noah Baumbach film. Noah Baumbach of Frances Ha and Marriage Story and a whole bunch of other films. This one's about a kind of Hollywood icon who's having a bit of a crisis of identity. Seems like fairly safe territory for George Clooney, but really it's just nice to see him back in this kind of movie star mode after a fairly long kind of absence in the wilderness. So it looks, and it's also it looks to be more nuanced than that, and it is drawing a bit of Oscar buzz, particularly for Clooney in the acting role. So keep an eye out for that one. Now, Left-Handed Girl. This one is an interesting one that's kind of under the radar. The director is a collaborator of Sean Baker, who is the director of Anora, and they have worked together on films in the past, like I believe it's called Takeout. This one is about a family that moves to Taiwan, opens up a restaurant in a kind of food market area. Looks to be a very small-scale drama, but the kind of presence of this kind of team that produced the likes of films like Anora and the Florida Project and whatnot kind of adds a little bit of interest to it. This one is looking to be kind of a more subtle film, but one that probably is worth looking out for if you're looking for something that's kind of going to cleanse the palate with all these big kind of end-of-year blockbusters coming out. Nouvelle Vague. Now, this one was at the Whanau Marama New Zealand International Film Festival. It is one of two Richard Linklater films that have come out this year, the other being the absolutely superb Blue Moon. I like this one a little less. It is a reconstruction of that kind of Nouvelle Vague era of filmmaking, 1960s in France, the likes of Jean-Luc Godard and Francois Truffaut and all the rest of them kind of banding together to reinvent cinema, essentially. Very, very important time. It's about the making of Breathless. It's got a very, very big cast. cast. It's very lovingly recreating the time and also the style of Godard's films. If you're a fan of Godard, obviously this one's going to be a bit like Catnip. It's most valuable is that kind of recreation. It's a little bit of like an informing people about this style of filmmaking, this era in filmmaking, and hopefully drawing people to go and actually seek out the work of these incredible artists. It's a very nice film. Don't get me wrong. I just think of the films that have come out from Linklater this year, Blue Moon I think is one of the best of the year, absolutely. And right at the end of the month, something that a lot of people are going to be keeping an eye on, Stranger Things 5, the arrival of the final season that has been in an extremely long production phase. I read recently that it's rumored that each episode costs $60 million to make, which is far and away the most of any TV series in terms of budget level. So they're going to be going out in style, clearly. It is the kind of wrapping up of a series that started fairly humbly with this kind of Stephen King style sci-fi spooky genre fest way back when those kids were little tykes, and now they're fully grown up. So it's going to be an interesting one to see, just to see how they wrap it up, whether that enormous budget is warranted really. Have they run out of steam? I felt like in the last season it seemed like they were getting pretty close to running out of steam, so it'll be interesting to see how they wrap that all up. On Saturday, 8th of November, 8:30 p.m, Rialto Channel is presenting the TV premiere of The Surfer, Lorcan Finnegan's kind of future cult classic that dropped earlier this year in cinemas. Nicolas Cage, the mighty Nicolas Cage, returns for another kind of offbeat, off-the-wall performance. I genuinely think Nicolas Cage is a brilliant actor, and I am so happy every time I see him on my screen. He's a true movie star. This is a really, really interesting film. Set in Australia, it's about a guy who is very, very desperate to buy his childhood home, which is on a kind of restricted, very hard to reach stretch of beach in Australia. When he goes there to show his son, he's met by a group of local surfers who are very, very territorial. They say, if you don't live here, don't surf here. It comes to blows. It's and so it kicks off this kind of story of obsession and spiraling kind of degradation. It's about a character who is basically losing his mind in the car park of this beach that he desperately wants to go and surf on. It's a very, very interesting, very heady story, very, very intense, very visually lush. Nicolas Cage holds it all together in the way that only he can. Very, very kind of high wire, intense performance. It's also one of the last screen appearances of Julian McMahon, who unfortunately died earlier this year. He plays the kind of head of the little gang of surfers. Very, very menacing kind of role. It's a very, very fun film. It's a very, very intense one. It's a real sensory experience. Highly, highly recommend you check it out. From the 29th of October to the 19th of November, the British and Irish Film Festival is back. It is a really, really strong program this year. Fergus Grady, who we've had on the show before, has done a really, really great job drawing together a whole very tasty program from the films of this region from this year. At the top, there are some big heavy hitters. Ralph Fiennes stars in The Coral, which is stars him as a choir director. There's Rob Reiner's long-awaited legacy sequel to Spinal Tap 2. And there's also The History of Sound, which is looking to be a bit of an Oscar player. Josh O'Connor, Paul Mescal in a kind of very sensitive, very beautiful love story. But there are a few kind of more under the radar titles that I wanted to highlight as well. Ones that I'm feeling pretty excited about. Dead of Winter is a bit of an interesting choice for star Emma Thompson. It's a kind of very cold and bitter thriller, and it's an interesting mode for her to be playing in it. It's been advertised as seeing Emma Thompson the way you've never seen her before. So I'll be keeping an eye out for that one. Moss and Freud kind of details the relationship that emerged between Kate Moss, the famous model, and Lucian Freud, who was the beloved artist, and the relationship that they formed. So that one looks like a very interesting kind of profile of that time. Beat the Lotto is a story of a mathematician who managed to beat the lotto. That one is getting a little bit of buzz underneath everything. I'm very, very excited for that one. Twiggy is a documentary about the iconic fashion model Twiggy, of course. There's also a documentary that has been kind of doing the rounds for a while. It's finally arriving here, called The Golden Spurtle. Now this one looks really, really interesting. It's about a porridge making competition in a tiny little region of Britain, and the kinds of dramas that kind of evolve out of that. You know what it reminds me of is a New Zealand film called Pecking Order, which is a great documentary, great New Zealand documentary about raising and putting chickens in competition, and it's a really, really great film. You could do a little bit of a double bill with The Golden Spurtle. I'm sure you get a lot out of it. This kind of kooky small town profile that actually has a lot of cinematic value as well. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention they are also doing a retrospective of the great Dame Maggie Smith, who unfortunately passed quite recently. Two of her great performances: Room with a View, Merchant Ivory, an absolute classic, devastating, powerful storytelling, and The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, which is widely regarded as perhaps the Maggie Smith performance. So you don't want to miss that. It's a wonderful festival every year. I love the British Irish Film Festival, so get along to that.